Hey, what's going on, man? This is Mike, and you're listening to A Squared Podcast with Aaron and Cornbread.
A Squared Podcast. I am DJ Aaron. I'm here with my brother
Cornbread. What up, man? How y'all doing out there?
Cornbread.
What up, baby?
I don't think that he told you his name. We got a special guest in the building. I'm jumping right into it. We're gonna jump right into it. This is gonna be a good one.
So who we got, man?
Man, we got Michael. And the last name, one more time.
Trimble.
Michael Trimble.
Michael Trimble is in the building right now.
Appreciate you being here with us.
No problem, man. No problem.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
And I was going to do like this magical introduction, right? But then I was like, no, I don't even want to do that no more. I want you to introduce yourself and who you are and what do you do.
Yeah, man, no problem. Like you said, I'm Michael Trimble. Man, I'm 35 years old. I'm up here in the Champaign-Urbana area, man. I'm a certified flight instructor, chief pilot, and helicopter pilot.
You hear that, man? This man literally takes off.
Literally. Every day.
Take off.
So tell me a little bit about that, about how that started for you. What made you want to go into this field?
Oh man, I'll tell you what. Like we discussed a little prior, I was in the military. I did 8 years in the Marine Corps, and I was a grunt. I was infantry. Spent a lot of time on helicopters.
Thank you for your service.
No problem. Yeah, absolutely. Sure. I was always really jealous of those guys, man. They drop us off in the middle of nowhere, for a month, 2 months, and they'd fly away and go sleep in their own beds.
Right.
So I was like, hey, when I get done pounding the dirt, I'm going to be that guy.
Right.
So that's what I did, man. I got out of the military and put myself through flight school and kind of worked my way up, and now here I am, being a chief pilot and chief flight instructor, mainly in charge of making sure, just training the new generation of the helicopter industry, putting together course curriculum, making sure other instructors are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and on top of that, also being commercially rated, man. I've done everything from fly pipeline inspection to news helicopters to aerial photo flights and videography.
Wow.
Man, there's so many things you can do with helicopters that absolutely intrigued me and amazed me.
So you prefer that?
Absolutely.
Like you absolutely prefer helicopters over anything else?
I do, man. Like I said, we can fly in every direction and we can fly standing still. There's no other aircraft that can do that.
Absolutely.
It would seem like I don't know. It's like the commercial airlines seem like that's like carrying, 200, 300 people. Like that seems like a scary job, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anytime you're carrying strangers,
right,
per se.
Yeah.
I mean, you're always a little like apprehensive, but it's a good thing because you don't ever want to be too complacent, man. You always want to remember that you're responsible for everybody on that aircraft, whether it be a 737 or a little 5-seater helicopter.
Right.
You're pilot in command, man. It's your responsibility. They're all relying on you.
Absolutely. So I'll back up a little bit. You said you were, with the Marines?
Yep,
or you were with the Marines. So do you think that's a natural progression? I deal with people in the Air Force and everything like that. So is that normal that whenever you guys get out of service, you kind of go towards, piloting?
I wouldn't say it's normal, not going towards piloting, man.
Okay.
It's just kind of it's a real small knit group. Most of the guys that come out of the military, to be honest with you, go into law enforcement.
Right.
Most all the ones I still keep in contact with are law enforcement now.
Right.
There's like 2 of us, now that fly helicopters.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay, so if you don't mind elaborating more on pilot school or, what
Oh, man.
what that looks like for somebody, maybe, like I said, there might be a 16-year-old out there,
Absolutely.
or there might be a Marine who's about to come home. And you might
Absolutely.
want to do that. So what's the process of getting out and then going into school?
All right, man. Well, if you want to do more than just kind of fly around privately, you want to look, go on career path. There's several steps you got to take, man. Yeah, you'll go start flight training, and you got to get your private pilot's license first, okay? And the FAA has mandated minimums, flight time and ground time that need to go into that, training curriculum that needs to be met.
Mm-hmm.
You get that done, you get your private ticket. Well, you can fly helicopters. You just can't get paid to do it now,
Right.
So you can't do it for a living.
Right.
So the next step is usually getting your commercial license, and then your instrument rating, flight instructor rating, and with each rating moving up, it gets tougher. You learn a lot more of advanced techniques, the the margin for error, your consistency needs to be much, much better, especially when you're going for your commercial, because this is now telling people, like, I want to fly people's mothers, daughters, wives, husbands, brothers for
Absolutely.
a living.
Right.
So, the examiner who does your check ride to give you your test, he's going to take that stuff into account. Are you A, skilled enough yet at this point? And do you have the right mindset? To be honest with you, it's tough, though. It's stuff that's really foreign to a lot of people. I mean, me coming out of the Marine Corps, being a grunt,
Right.
last thing I thought I was going to learn about was, like, meteorology and weather
Right.
and in-depth. And then
Absolutely.
aerodynamics and physics.
Absolutely.
And so it's tough. It's tough stuff to comprehend. But, man, once you learn it, it's some of the most interesting stuff ever.
It is.
It really is.
So what's it like? Like flying through? Like you mentioned the weather. I'm sure you've been through all types of weather. So
Absolutely.
what's that like?
Man, you get into bad weather, it's scary every time, no matter what. We try to avoid that, try to circumvent weather,
Go
if we
around
can,
it,
try to
or-
maintain distance.
Right.
Especially with helicopters, we can fly much lower and much slower than fixed-wing aircraft.
Right.
So our mandated regulations by the FAA on flyable conditions are quite a bit more laxed than, say, with an airplane. But getting into weather, man, it's always scary. I mean, you just got to rely on your training, rely on your instruments, and get yourself out of it safely if you do get in it.
Right.
So is there this might be a crazy question, is there autopilot with helicopters?
On about 90% of them, no. There are about a 10%, the really expensive helicopters. They have
Right.
what's called SAS, Stability Augmentation Systems.
Right.
And they're, in a sense, on autopilot. But even then, they're not super duper efficient. They do just allow for single pilot workload. If you're really changing a lot of frequencies, punching in GPS navigation, stuff like that, it'll kind of hold it steady for you for a little while. But to just kind of set it and forget it, And
Right.
like I said, that's when you're getting up into the big, multi-million-dollar helicopters. Most 85, 90% of helicopter pilots either won't see those in their career or haven't seen them yet.
Right.
And to be honest with you, I don't really like to rely on them. I like to be at the controls the whole time, flying the machine the whole time. I trust myself more than I trust a system.
Right.
So
So they're for like shorter trips then, the helicopter. So like, could you fly for an hour, 2 hours? What's like the distance
man.
on helicopters?
anywhere from 3 hours to 6 hours.
Really?
I mean, they've got a pretty good duration on them, and
Okay.
how far you can make it, and on your fuel capacity is what determines obviously how far you can go.
Right.
But how far you make it in that time span all depends on whether or not you're flying into like a 40-knot headwind and you're fighting it, or it's a tailwind and it's helping push you along.
Right.
That can make a difference of a couple hundred miles sometimes.
Okay.
So what's you mentioned like the mind state and mind frame, that you have to be in. So when you're getting recruited to do this, or this is what you want to do, like what are some of the interview process for them to determine if you're the right person to work for this company?
Oh man, a lot of it has to do with responsibility, big time. Are you a responsible person? Are you dependable? I mean, even small things, are you responsible enough to show up to work 5 minutes early? You're responsible enough to do a little bit of extra work, not even involving flying, because if you are, then we know when you're flying, you're going to be the person who's going to take that extra responsibility there as well, which is huge. You can't ever really get in the wrong state of mind while flying. And there's a lot of things just as human beings that we deal with every day. Stress, lack of sleep.
I was just thinking about that, like all the natural things that we all go through on a daily
Absolutely.
basis, and you still gotta put that focus in.
You do. One thing I always tell myself, it's extremely common throughout the industry, is every pilot, man, every time we wake up, every morning before we even, put our flight suit and our shoes on to head to the aircraft, we do a self-assessment. We call it an I'm safe checklist.
Nice.
Am I sick? Am I on any medication? Did I take Benadryl last night? Anything that could affect me and being 110% that day. And if I'm not, I probably shouldn't fly. That's just all there is to it.
Right.
So you have to make that, like you have to decide at that moment, like, okay, am I mentally ready to do this today?
Absolutely.
Because if you're not, then you won't fly.
Right. There's even though, aviation is amazing, it's a passion of mine, and it's a passion of every pilot's and a lot of people's, there's still a small calculated risk every single time you go up,
Right.
no matter what. So if you notice something with yourself, you just added to that risk. So you don't want to include that. Just say, you know what, hey, I'm sorry, I woke up, I'm sick, I don't know, I'm stressed out, I didn't sleep well. I know in a lot of professions, oh, boss, man, I didn't get a lot of sleep last
And
night.
you still got to
Right.
clock in.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're still coming to work.
Right.
This is a different story.
And that opens you up to cut corners.
Absolutely.
Like especially if you're tired or you're just not feeling it, you might I'm not gonna check this because it was okay yesterday. You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? And then
You're
you think that
absolutely right,
hey
man.
man, I'm gonna cut these corners. Let me get this person out of here. Like you said, you have students. You
Yep.
know, hey, let me get this class over with. I don't even want to be here. But then that's the day.
Exactly. That's the day that something will happen.
That's your worst case scenario will
Yep.
happen. So, no, absolutely. I know secondary education's pretty crazy in America.
Correct,
It's
yeah.
very expensive. People go to colleges and, they can come out of college with a 4 or 5 year degree and be in debt $80,000.
Right.
If you get your master's, it could be $200,000. I
Absolutely.
mean, so what's the education like? I know you touched on it a little bit, but I guess could you go more in depth on the education part and then the money? Like if I'm a new person trying to go into this, is it like, man, I got to go in debt for something else for like a trade, or how does that work?
It kind of depends right now. There are a select few universities across the country right now that do offer a professional pilot program where
Okay.
you can go and you can get financial aid.
That's
you
good.
can use your
That's good.
post 9/11 GI Bill.
That's awesome.
That's great, man.
There's a very select few of them nowadays.
Do you know a couple offhand?
I think it's Guidance Aviation down in Arizona, Southern Utah University.
Okay.
Those are the two real big ones.
Right. Okay.
And a lot of other schools, including the one I'm working with right now, are trying to get what's called a 141 syllabus to be in conjunction with a college and offer a professional pilot program.
Correct.
That way you can get financial assistance because you're absolutely right. Learning to fly helicopters is very expensive.
Okay.
If I take you from a private pilot to instructor, you're probably going to be into it anywhere from $75,000 to $100,000.
Correct. Right.
It is a lot of money.
Right.
And if you are not an approved school that can accept outside funding, that's out of pocket money.
Right.
Now
Right.
the flip side to that, is you're going to invest a lot in your education, but this is an industry of extremely small pilot pool. By comparison to airline, fixed wing pilots, stuff like that. So your first year or second year of being a pilot, you've now paid back your education.
Right.
I
Okay.
mean, it's a well-paying industry.
That's good, man.
So it's just for the ones who can't afford to get out there to a college or
There's
something like that.
help. There's
Yeah.
help for them to be able to be pilots.
Right, and there are a couple scholarship programs out there. Whirly Birds, Sally Mae. They're
We know Sally Mae.
They're tough to get. They're tough scholarships
For sure,
to get.
yeah.
But the assistance is out there.
And I think you hit it on the head. At least this is a profession where you're going to make your money back. And let's say 5 years or less. I think that's also the
Absolutely.
problem
Absolutely.
with a lot of education, where you come out of your field and you owe $80,000, $90,000, $100,000, but then there's no jobs.
Right.
Number one, or the competition is too hard, or they just don't pay enough. It's like
Right.
you were in this big hole of debt, but then that profession that you went and studied hard for and passed everything, they can't pay you back. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's great that being a helicopter pilot or just being any type of pilot, you already know that's a great investment, because after I graduate or pass everything, a couple years, I'll make that money back. So.
Absolutely, and right now actually is prime time. Us in the aviation industry, at least, we've been hearing of this big pilot shortage that was coming up.
I was just about to go into this, and you about to go into it. I love it. I love it.
And you saw it all over the news. This big pilot shortage, because all the Vietnam era guys who were flying the commercial airlines. Now they're retiring, and same thing with all the guys that used to fly the Hueys in Vietnam that were flying EMS and Powerline or whatever. Now they're all retiring, and the airlines actually offered a program called RTAG, the Rotor to Transition Air Group, to where now they were taking qualified helicopter pilots and saying, "Hey, we'll pay to train you in this corporate jet, a Citation, a Hawker, whatever."
Right.
and you come fly for us. Well, in the airline world, it is pretty common to get on with the company and work 20, 30 years and retire. In the helicopter pilot world, yeah, you can do it, but it's a lot of kind of jumping around in the field, finding your niche, whether you want to do utility or long line or EMS or be a career instructor.
So what's utility, long line? What is that?
Utility would be, for instance, take the guys that go up to Alaska. They're building a lot of pipelines in Alaska.
Right.
Okay, so they long lining, and you guys may have seen it, is when you see like a big helicopter lifting like a big air conditioning unit from a 200-foot line up onto the top of a building.
Right.
That would fall under utility. Flying sections of oil pipeline out to those guys so they could put them together. Out there in the middle of, I think there's one going up in Ketchikan, Alaska right now. I've actually got some buddies out there flying. Fall under that, and I'm sure everybody's seen aerial tree trimming. That's the craziest one of all.
Right.
That's the craziest one of all. You're flying an MD-500 with 100-foot long saw blades underneath you, trimming trees right along power lines.
That's so
I love flying, but that's the one. That's the one route I'm not even going to try.
You were sick that day, right?
Right.
You did a
But,
self-evaluation. Yeah, I ain't coming in.
But no,
like
with all the helicopter pilots now are moving over to the fixed wing side because they know that they can get in with these companies and work 20 and just retire, and they've got a pretty set schedule. They're not on call a lot like I am. Now the helicopter world in itself is like really, really needing pilots. So if anybody's out there looking to fly helicopters or airplanes, now is the time.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about the big news that's out.
Okay.
And the 737 MAX, and I've listened to pilots talk about it a little bit on the news. I've done some YouTubing, I've done some Googles, and I just want to kind of get it from you and your perspective on what's going on, and just kind of see how you feel about it. So, how do you feel about them? Number one, being grounded, right now, and then number two, some of the pilots speaking out about they've made complaints before about certain things that's been going on. Like, how do you feel?
Well, right now, I mean, with the obvious incidents that have occurred recently, grounding the aircraft, I do agree with. I mean, obviously, we want to make sure that the problem is pinpointed, fixed. You just, like I said, we were talking about risk, no matter what it be, yourself or a simple piece of equipment. If you know something's wrong and you know it's carrying passengers, loved ones, then grounding the aircraft is the right thing to do in my mind. As far as the pilots that have made reports in the past saying we've had issues with this, they did the right thing. I mean, as pilot, you obviously, you say, hey, this is wrong. Whoever they reported it to maybe should have looked into it a little bit more.
Right.
On the maintenance side of things, as pilots, we only know so much. We know quite a bit, but we're not the mechanics, we're not the designers, the engineers. We don't know absolutely every wire and soldering.
Right.
Correct.
So I just don't know, man. I think that when this aircraft was first developed and designed and tested, just like with any aircraft, before it gets approved to fly, it goes through flight test after flight test after flight test, and data capture, and engineers look. I mean, years and years
before it's even up in the air.
Right, before they even get the signature saying, okay, you can build this and put it into production. So if it was something that was approved in the beginning and just over time kind of started to wear itself out, which it's a complex machine. Think about your car. Have something go wrong with your car in an instant.
I'm taking it in the shop.
Yeah.
All I know is the gas lights on and oil change and tire pressure. That's the three things I know.
So things do happen. They do go wrong over time. We just need to make sure that before the finger pointing happens too much and the blame game gets played too much.
I feel like that's already happening, man.
It already is.
So many of these conferences and stuff like that, and it's just like these guys just grilling everybody. You guys knew, and you got all this type of stuff, and
the unfortunate part about that is the guy that's sitting there pointing the finger, grilling, saying you guys knew, is more than likely part of the organization that had to do with the flight testing and developing in that in the first place. So, Now they just don't want to take the blame. They want to put it on the people
That's
actually
where the finger
operating
pointing
and
comes
flying
from.
them.
Okay.
Exactly.
Somebody's got to take the L.
They're both going to be sitting there pointing fingers at each other. It's your fault. No, you're the one that okayed it for flight and considered it airworthy. Well, it's your fault that blah, blah, blah. No, you know.
They're machines.
They are. And things are going to go wrong.
Right.
And as we all know in aviation, the maintenance, the inspections, they are so stringent. So stringent. But still things happen, you know. Right.
So is there like a union or anything, like a pilot union? So let's say the pilots feel like our planes or helicopters are not being taken care of or not maintenance right, or you guys aren't putting the money in to correct these issues. And the pilot says, well, I'm not flying today.
That's absolutely acceptable.
So will they find another pilot? Or is it like all pilots on strike and then, all right, until y'all fix it, we're not taking
More
flight.
than likely, that's what's going to happen. Pilots are, I mean, and it's an FAA regulation. It's in the FAR, okay?
Right.
The pilot in command is the final authority in whether or not that aircraft flies that day. Mm-hmm. Now, if one pilot says, hey, this doesn't look right to me, I'm not going to fly it, and it's maintenance related, and that company questions him, there's already a problem there.
Right.
You know, he sees an issue.
It's a
He
trust
says,
issue.
I don't think this is safe to operate. His employer should never second guess him.
Right.
Okay. Now, yes, there's though, just like in every industry, there's, you know, the macho pilots that come over. Oh, that's not a problem. I'll go fly it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's going to happen. But for the most part, being pilots is definitely a brotherhood. You know, we all realize the risk. We all want to be safe. We all want the next guy to be safe. We don't. If I look at it and say, I'm not going to fly it, and then my buddy comes over and says, oh, I'll take it up, me and him are going to have a little conversation. You know, but hey, man, you really want to chance this? You know? But,
yeah, not to cut you off.
No,
like, I've been in, you know, I fly a lot. I love flying. I'd rather, hey, I'll hop on a plane in a minute. But it's like us being passengers, we're more concerned about, you know, we're on a schedule. It's a reason why we're flying, to get somewhere, for it could be a job, to see family, whatever. We don't care about the plane. We want to make sure we get there. But as a passenger, we have to understand that, man, our safety is number one, and we don't see that. So that's good to hear that if a pilot has a problem with whatever's going on, that, no, we're not leaving until we know this is fixed.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? I'll rather take that and be delayed than... well, like you said, the macho pilot. No, we can go. And now we have bigger issues when we're in the air.
Absolutely.
Or maybe over water or something like that. So
I personally have been in that position, not flying, you know, at the controls myself of a helicopter, but in a commercial airliner. You know, we're taxied out on the runway, and all of a sudden we sit there for like an hour. And then the pilot comes over the intercom, tells us, you know, we're going to have to debark the plane and switch planes. And I'm more than okay with that, because in my mind, I already know why we're doing this.
right, but I know
And
you
the
hear
other
everybody else cursing them out.
they were a little unruly, you know.
And so this goes back to, and I think I told you about this, Michael, when we were, when I met you in the Uber.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's make that clear to the people. I met him in the Uber. So my last time flying was with my wife, and we're going to Palm Beach, and we're on the flight. We're taxiing out, and he says, the pilot comes on, captain comes on and says, you know, we're going to wait a few minutes. We're having a mechanical issue. We're going to wait to get this resolved. And then everybody around me started, like, having an attitude. That goes back to what you were saying about the schedule.
Right.
They only care about the time, you know, when they're going to get to where they have to go.
Correct.
So it took about an hour. You know, we're just on the flight, and he decides we're not going to fly this plane. Okay? Lady in front of me, she's cursing everybody out.
Oh, yeah.
She's cursing everybody
And she always has a baby. The person who curses always got like a little kid. Bro.
That's so funny.
Always
because
has a baby for some reason.
normally that's true, and in this particular case, she was by herself.
Right.
Which I can see why she'd be by herself, but that's a whole other story. Anyway. I was so appreciative of that captain making that call, because it could have just been like, you know, well, they came and they looked at it and they given me the, you know, if I want to do this, then I'm going to, you know, take responsibility and take it up. He didn't.
Absolutely.
And I made it a point to thank him for that. We all moved to another flight. It took 25 minutes. It took 45 minutes for us to get in the air, less than an hour. And he was flying that plane.
Right.
Thanked him again.
Right.
You know what I mean?
See, and that goes back to exactly what we touched on earlier, responsibility.
Right.
He was the pilot that recognized something was wrong or saw something he didn't like, realizes, hey, I've got mothers, daughters, sisters, brothers, aunts,
Absolutely.
uncles. I'm responsible for every single one of these people, and I'm not going to take that chance. So he was honest, which is good.
And I can appreciate that,
huge.
yeah.
That's integrity. I mean, it's
Right.
great integrity.
Right.
Yeah, it made some people mad, but he could have been the guy that just said, let's do it anyways, and maybe nobody would have made it to their destination.
Right.
So that was a great call on his part.
Yeah.
Right.
So when I was just looking at that, I was just, and normally when I hear people complaining, everybody's going to complain. There are just people who just going to complain for no reason, and she just kept going, And I was walking behind her. Me and the wife were walking behind her. She's talking to herself, and everybody around, just making sure that she's loud. Saying every time I fly American, this happens. Something always happens. I wasn't going to say anything, right? But she just said one more thing. I don't remember what it was, and I was like, I guess you would just rather us die. You know what I mean?
Right.
And she didn't like snap back at me or anything. Like I turned around, she looked at me, she was like, no, I know, but I just want to get to where I have to go. And I said safely would be the best way to do that, though, right? And so she was just like, I know. But it's just like, people are so stuck on that time, and whatever it is to help them get to where they got to do, go. They don't worry about the all the mechanical things that can go wrong, and I just was so appreciative of it, man. And I don't even know the guy's name, but at the same time, it's just like, it could have went so wrong.
Absolutely.
Could have went so wrong, and it didn't. So, for all those people who are listening right now, I'll say this. Appreciate your captain when you fly, man. Appreciate that.
And you guys are listening to A Square Podcast.
A Square Podcast.
We're with Chief Pilot Michael Trimble.
Yes.
He's teaching us some do's and don'ts of
Absolutely.
flying. I'll stay on the same subject a little bit on emergencies. So we watch movies all the time. The Fast and Furiouses
Right.
and I'm trying to think of a helicopter movie where
It's like we wanna know.
like San Andreas.
We wanna
I don't know
know.
with The Rock.
Oh, yeah,
so
absolutely.
he's on the pilot. They're going through like the Grand Canyon, the narrow stuff areas,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's like it looks like a helicopter can do it, but it's like, come on, y'all are doing this to the extreme. So
They're pretty versatile, pending the helicopter. Pending the helicopter, some are much more versatile than others. I kind of assume you're talking about that part where they kind of like slide
Right,
down
they
in
slide
between the
down.
rocks.
Correct.
That particular helicopter, I think that's a 412. It's capable of that maneuver.
Really? Okay. That's good to know.
Would I ever try it? Do I know? Do I personally know anybody that would ever try
Right.
it? No.
yeah, absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
No, that's a fully capable aircraft, and there are a lot of things they can do. Unfortunately, you mentioned the movies, and it never fails. If there's a helicopter in the movie, for some reason it always blows up, and
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
get a bad
Yeah, I
reputation
never
that
thought
way.
about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
they
let me-
always they
you
hit a
let-
building somewhere. It's in the
Exactly.
middle of the desert, but it
Yeah.
finds a building just to hit,
The
just to blow up.
helicopter
Right.
never makes it till the end scene.
Absolutely, that is true, man.
I
That is
never
true.
thought about that.
But they're absolutely, they're relatively safe machines. One of the biggest misconceptions is, what if something does happen, you lose an engine? Everybody's like, oh, an airplane can glide. Helicopters falls out of the sky. No, it doesn't. I mean, we can glide too. We do what's called an auto rotation, and we practice them religiously over and over and over and over until you build the muscle memory to do it. So they're perfectly safe. And to be honest with you, you catch it early enough and you enter an auto rotation. Okay, now a plane loses an engine. He better find a road, a highway, somewhere.
That's true because he needs the space.
Right.
Right.
Okay. All I need is however wide my rotor disc is.
Right.
I can set it down in just the rotor disc diameter. So we
Wow.
can put it down just about anywhere.
That's cool. So do you mind, like you said, you have students and everything. I know you give them a briefing or like, let's say if something does happen, this is what needs to happen.
Absolutely.
Can you kind of open up that door a little bit for us? So
Oh, man.
just talk us through, like you said, maybe your engine went out and I don't know, you could say you're over water or the desert or whatever it is that, I'm trying to create a
absolutely.
worst case scenario. Talk us through how you would handle that.
Worst case
Right.
scenario that we always train for is the loss of engine power or
Okay.
loss of tail rotor effectiveness.
Right.
A lot of people don't know, but the tail rotors back there actually counteract the main torque of the rotor blades.
Correct.
It spins counterclockwise. Newton's third law of motion: for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. The
Correct.
helicopter itself wants to go to the right. So the tail rotor's back there to help keep us in a straight line. Well, obviously, if something in the drive line breaks there, it's not going to stay in a straight line anymore.
Right.
Or if we have an engine failure, we don't have power driving the rotors. Okay, that's the big one. So that's the one we train for the most, is an auto rotation, an engine failure.
Okay.
You always see a helicopter flying through the air, and it's always a little nose low, right?
Right.
It's never
Yeah.
it's never
That's true.
perfectly level,
Yeah.
Right.
And that's obviously because we're taking the air from above the main rotor disc and accelerating it down through the main rotor disc, producing torque and thrust, and that's how we fly.
Right.
If we lose an engine, now we have a system in there called a sprag clutch that allows the rotor system to fully disengage from the engine. So even if your engine instantly seizes, your rotors will keep spinning for a little bit.
Okay.
Okay? And what we got to do is we've got to now bring the aircraft from a little nose low attitude to a little nose high, because we do start to fall. And now what we're doing is we're using the upflow of air through the rotor disc to keep them spinning. That's your number one goal. Keep the big spinning fan spinning. Because if
Absolutely.
it stops spinning, that's when you're in trouble. So that's all we do, and it does have to be a quick reaction.
Right.
There's about four control inputs that need to be done very quickly. First thing, we got the little stick in our left hand. It's called a collective. Okay, we need to lower that sucker as fast as we can, because
Okay.
the higher that's up, the more pitch is on our blades, the more drag they're creating.
Okay.
So we lower that down, take all that drag away,
Right.
so that we can continue to keep them spinning. We can modulate them, and we can slow them down or speed them up, depending on how far we need to glide to
Right.
where we need to go.
Correct.
But we can get about a 4-to-1 glide ratio out of it. But that's the one thing that with every student, private level, commercial, if I'm training another flight instructor, you name it, auto rotations, auto rotations, auto rotations. And they don't just have to be forward. We'll do 180s, we'll do 0 speeds, we'll do 360s. And because that's one thing you're always thinking about when flying. You're flying around, you're looking outside, about every 10 seconds you should be picking out a spot, just in case.
Oh man, I didn't even think about
Wow.
that.
Especially
That's
when
great.
when you're flying around,
That's great.
Places like Atlanta or Chicago,
Right.
and you're in really close proximity to buildings. Okay, that's one thing you're constantly looking for. Big rooftop, an open street, just a parking lot, because it can be set down in a very small place.
Right.
You just got to have one in mind so that you make sure you make it.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, man.
No problem.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I never noticed
That's
that. Just to think about it, like looking out every few minutes just to see where you can possibly land.
Absolutely.
That-
The mental workload when flying a helicopter is so much more than the physical.
Right.
I mean, the physical, it's about as exhausting as playing a video game. I mean, really, you're kind of moving your feet a little bit, you're moving both hands, but it's the mental overload, the constant, the gauge scan, keeping in mind where the winds are coming from, keeping in mind where you can land if something goes wrong. I mean, you're looking out this section of the window for 10 seconds and you're scanning your gauges. Now you're looking out this section for 10 seconds, you're scanning your gauges again. And all the while, you're feeling out what the wind's doing and making corrections just with muscle memory that you've
Yeah.
built over hours and hours and hours.
So your mind has to really be like free
Sharp.
Absolutely.
and sharp of
Sharp.
everything, because like I can't imagine you being up there stressed out about stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
we all
taking your mind off
we
of it?
all
Yeah,
have
that's true.
stresses.
You're right.
So, how do you, regulate that? Like everybody has life stresses. Everybody does. So, how do you regulate your personal things that are happening in your life that you want to do or handle or anything, and take that and put it away?
He
so
also
that
said
you
it was
can-
his birthday today. So I mean, that's crazy, right? And,
It is,
we
actually, it
appreciate
is.
you talking to us,
Happy
but
birthday.
that's
No problem.
I mean, like you said, you're away from the family. I mean,
Absolutely,
that's
yeah.
another stress of
for sure.
piling and just leaving to take care of work and stuff. So how does that,
That's very very common in the helicopter world. Is you're going to move away for somewhere for a year, maybe sometimes
Random.
2, maybe
And
sometimes
where are
3.
you from
Really?
again?
Really?
I'm from Kansas.
You're from Kansas.
Yep.
So you're here in Champaign, Illinois. And for how long again?
At least a year. At least a year. I'm up here with
Oh,
SummerSkyz
man.
helicopters back out in St. Joe, and we also have a location up north, at Lansing Airport, just south of Chicago.
So being away from home for that amount of time, how do you?
It's tough. I'm married. I've got 4 kids. One of the things I make sure to do, because being away from them is probably the hardest part out of everything. Every night, no matter what I'm doing, no matter if I'm in an Uber or if I just got done flying with a student or I'm at my hotel room, I FaceTime them.
Nice.
I FaceTime my kids every single night.
Nice.
And I make sure that, they know I'm okay. Because being away, they know Daddy flies helicopters, and I've been doing that for a while, so they're not worried about that.
Right.
They're just really worried about me being away and being alone.
Right.
So I always make sure to let them know, hey, guys, Daddy's okay, love you. My wife and I have factored in, financially that either they can come up and see me once a month or I can go down and see them once a month. That's the biggest thing for me, is just talking to them, getting that every night. Doing that every night, just it helps me wake up better the next day.
Right, absolutely.
yeah.
Knowing that they're safe and everything.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm sure they're gonna listen, man. Give them a shout out.
Hey,
tell them.
hey
tell 'em
kids,
what's up.
hey, if you're listening, Daddy loves you, okay?
Yeah.
Be good for Mommy. She's been telling me you haven't been.
Go to sleep. Yeah, they're staying up. Go to sleep.
So this is the A Squared podcast, Aaron and Cornbread.
What up? What up?
And we're here with Michael and Trimble. And I just want to say, first of all, we really do appreciate you for taking
For
the
real,
time
man.
to come and sit down and talk to us. There's a lot of podcasts, a lot of people out there who have a lot of interviews with different, people in professions. But I don't feel that pilots get the recognition that they should get,
Absolutely.
So we just really appreciate you for coming on and hanging out with us. And I just want to also ask you, you still got a few minutes, right?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, making
Absolutely.
Sure. Making sure, 'cause we can go on forever. But no, I just want to ask you, why is it that you chose to do helicopters over the commercial flights? What makes it? I know we spoke off air, if you will, a little bit about it. But I want you to go into deeper details, if you could, of the major love that you have for helicopters versus commercial flights, because I know that's really what it's like. I mean, I fly all the time too. You know what I mean? I've never been in a helicopter before though.
Right.
Well, here's the thing. When you're in a commercial flight, I mean, think about it. You're up at, flight level 3. Sorry, I'll speak easier. 35,000, 40,000 feet.
Yeah.
You don't really get to see much detail. And you're cooking along at 450, 500 knots, it's enjoyable, being up there in the clouds. It's beautiful. You look down, you see the earth way down there. But for me, I can see the earth as fast as I want, as slow as I want.
Wow.
Fly in whatever direction I want. There's just the versatility of them,
Right.
To be able to go to downtown Chicago, and be flying a tour or something, and see something that I want to take a closer look at, or something that it just really caught my eye,
You can do that.
and not have to turn around a whole bunch of times. I mean, I can literally put the brakes on and just bring it into a hover at 2,000 feet and just look at it and take it in,
That's amazing.
Wow.
and just the detail you can see on the ground with the people. You really can see. You see everyday life and people moving around in everyday life because you're not so high up there. You know what I mean? And it's really, really cool to see. And then, of course, when you're flying over rush hour traffic and everybody's down there stuck on the highway, you kind of just look down, point, and laugh. Because you're like, aha. Takes you 2 hours to get to Chicago. I'll be there in 32 more minutes,
Yeah.
No, that's great, man.
That is awesome, man. So tell us a little bit about the company.
Yeah, I'm with SummerSkyz. Like I said, it's owned and operated by Bob and Amy Summers out in
Okay.
St. Joe. Primarily flight school, but we do also do some agricultural work, which falls under utility. We were talking about it earlier.
Okay.
Do a lot of corn pollinating and stuff, helping the farmers out. If the corn ever comes up this year.
I know.
Cornbread. Just let me slide that
There
in
you go. There you go.
Sneak
Nice
plug.
play on
Yeah,
words
yeah,
there.
I like it.
We also do, tours of the downtown Chicago area. We do have, like I said, 2 locations, one here in St. Joe. Do a lot of the flying out of the Rantoul Airport here, as well as Frasca.
So
and
you leave
Champaign.
from here and go up to Chicago.
Only every once in a while.
Is that? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
we've got a location up there, an aircraft base up
gotcha,
there, and
gotcha.
some other instructors up
Okay.
there as well. I just kind of bounce back and forth between both. We're just kind of spread. So we're closer to the people. We've got a location closer to the people in Chicago where there's a lot more people. The demographic is much denser.
Right.
But then there's also some people out here that don't want to drive down that far from there to train.
Right.
So it's a great company. Anybody that ever want, if you're interested in flying, want to come out and take a ride, either of you two, y'all ever want to come out and take a helicopter ride?
Appreciate it.
You got my contact information. Y'all ever want to learn to fly a helicopter?
Absolutely.
And everybody listening
Appreciate
as well. If you're interested in just taking a flight or learning to, be a helicopter pilot and want to sit down and talk about it more in depth, I've got all the time in the world. That's what I'm here for.
There's a lot of people who, and I've been doing like this research on, pilots and whatnot, and it just seems like there should be more people interested in flying. You know what I mean? Like I don't remember anybody in my family or people that I know
In school or anything.
or school or
I haven't heard
anything that ever say like I want to be. Besides, what's our guy name? Lance. He flies
Oh,
jets.
yeah, he
though.
does, he does.
He does jets. So outside of that, like I know a doctor. I know plenty of lawyers.
Yeah.
I know a lot of DJs. I know a lot of police officers. But I don't know. I can't name, besides Lance, I can't name any pilots,
So I got something for you, Michael. Then my fault.
No, you good.
So I
yeah.
got something for you. So
Yes, sir.
let's say there is a person out there who wants to be a pilot and they want to start school tomorrow. Can you give them maybe a story that maybe you did something and it was wrong, or like you learned from it, so you can kind of help them not make that
Right,
mistake?
right.
Oh,
of,
absolutely.
Like I said, maybe like you said, it could have been schooling or knowing that there is financial aid out there, or whatever big mistake that you made, and you're like, I'm not going to do that shit again. Is there something out there that
I'll tell you what,
he or she can learn from?
The biggest thing when it comes to if you're interested in learning to fly, go visit the school first. Sit down. Talk with the chief pilot. Okay? Do it one-on-one. A lot of bigger flight schools out there, they're referred to as pilot factories. They're going to push you through. They're going to teach you the basics to pass.
Right.
Okay? Make sure your instructor is going to teach you real world.
Right.
Okay? Because there's what the book says. Yeah,
Absolutely.
you got to know this. This is what you
Absolutely.
got to know to pass your test. But as soon as you get done doing that, you're going to be out there on your own. You're going to be doing real world flying.
Absolutely.
Like with my students, I love to incorporate, my pipeline inspection work. And I say, hey, down the road, if you ever end up doing pipeline work, this is something you might want to keep in mind. Power lines, airspeed over altitude, stuff like that. Make sure that your school is invested in you.
Absolutely. That's smart,
That's a
man.
huge one, because there's so many that will take advantage of you because
Just
it
push you
does
through?
and push you through because it does cost
Yeah,
so
'cause they
much
get the
money.
Right, correct.
Make sure the instructor is invested in you. He's got your best interest at heart.
Absolutely.
And most instructors and most chief pilots, we do, because we've been down that road ourselves. It took me, I went through six different flight instructors throughout my training. And
Is that normal? or
no,
not?
it's
Okay.
absolutely, it shouldn't be, but
Right.
unfortunately, yes, it is in some places.
Okay.
And that slows down your training, because now you did a month or two with this guy, and now he's gone because he found out, company wasn't so great, yada, yada, yada. Now you start flying with this guy, and he wants to see how you fly from scratch all over again. So it's like you got to prove yourself over and over and over, all the while burning up money.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So
wow.
that's the biggest advice I can give you, is make sure, don't just do your research, don't just look online, make a site visit, sit down with one of us, tell us where you're looking to get, and conversate with that person and get a read on them.
Right.
Don't let yourself be taken advantage of.
So there's
smart.
different institutions that are, bigger flight schools, and
Right.
some are smaller. So what would you, in your own personal opinion, what would you recommend? Which one would you recommend somebody to try? The smaller ones? It seems like you're saying like the smaller ones would be more personable, spend time with you, versus the bigger ones that may just kind of push you through because they're trying to keep as many.
On
people
a
going
personal
as
opinion,
possible.
yes, I agree. The bigger schools, especially on a lot of your groundwork and everything, they'll do like guided lecture style stuff where 10 students are sitting in a classroom and, we're up there on the whiteboard, we're asking questions. Can someone explain this? A lot of people get nervous in that setting. So they're not going to raise their hand to ask the question if they have the question.
Right.
So they may not leave fully understanding, and it may be that way throughout a lot of their training. And they're not,
And that's not good when you have people's lives
absolutely,
in your hand.
They're not. They're not
That's not
individually,
good. Yeah.
taken in and taught. And so, in my opinion, the smaller schools where everything is more personable, it's one-on-one. You get a feel for your instructor. The instructor gets a feel for you. You build a mutual respect, and obviously, you eventually build a trust with each other because
Absolutely.
you're up there in the air together. And throughout flight training, it's not just, oh, that's pretty, straight and level flying. You are practicing over and over and over. I'm teaching you every scenario that could go wrong
Right.
and how to fix it. So you really want to make sure that you've got a good relationship and a good understanding with each other.
Awesome, man.
No, that's great, man. So how do people reach you? What's your social media? Have you got Facebook, Instagram, whatever? How do they
I'll
reach
tell
you?
what, if
they got any more questions?
SummerSkyz, we've got a webpage, Instagram, Facebook, everything. They can get in touch through me through there. We've also got some cards.
And yeah, we'll put the links up too. Right underneath, if you guys subscribe to the podcast, we'll put the links up as well, how they can reach out to you. And that way they can schedule some stuff, man. Because I think that's
Absolutely.
really interesting, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
hell, I'm ready to schedule something right now. Just
I
I'm
like
trying
it,
to
man.
go up.
Well, he's rich though, so don't
It
worry.
is, like I told
he's
you
rich,
guys,
man.
this evening I'm flying with a student here in the next couple
That's
hours.
awesome.
So
Yeah.
from about 5 to 7, maybe 5 to 8 p.m., we'll be up enjoying the sunset. I don't know what y'all will be doing, but that's what I'll be doing.
No, I hear you.
I'll be down here. just
Looking up at you like,
There you
"Dang,
go.
man." I'm like,
Just wave.
Just wave at you.
Well, we appreciate you for coming, man, and we'll get those links up. And I just want to extend an open invitation to you to come back because
Absolutely.
while you're here, this is your home now, man. So we want you to come back, sit down with me again, sit down with us again, and we'll talk more things. It doesn't have to just be about this. We'll talk some more stuff too, man.
Especially if something happens where you like, man, I gotta let people know.
Absolutely.
So like I said,
I'll
we're
tell you
we're
what.
here
I'll
for
tell you
that.
what I think we should do. I need to get you guys up in the helicopter. Then we need to come back and do like a post helicopter flight talk where
See,
you've
now you're
experienced
talking.
it.
Now you're
I think
talking.
that's what we need to do.
What's the month
man.
that you're leaving?
Well,
You said you're gonna be here for a year.
you
So
gonna
when
join-
does it start?
April. I got here April 6th.
April. Okay, so we have until April.
Yeah,
Okay,
and then
okay,
that's
okay.
a minimum of a year.
Right.
So-
Okay, so yeah, all right. So we'll plan something, man. I like
we
that.
need to do that so that
Absolutely.
way
I like
we can talk about
So
it.
if I hear some beeping and stuff going on, I'm gonna look at you like, you gonna fix this?
tap me on the
Yeah,
shoulder.
you gonna fix this with the brakes, or what you gonna do, man?
Where's
So,
the eject
I like
button?
it. I like
I'm
it.
looking for the eject button.
So we'll
we don't
definitely
have
do that.
one, man. Sorry.
We'll definitely do that, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you again, man.
Absolutely.
Thank
No, and I
you so
appreciate you
much.
guys having me out here and having me on. Really do.
Absolutely. It's the A Square Podcast. Aaron Cornbread.
Cornbread, what up? Hey, thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for all the details coming next. We are out of here.
Peace.